Hey, Strong Girls. I'm Molly Herford, sports journalist, ultra runner, cyclist, and author, and founder of Strong Girl Publishing.
And I'm Dr. Sasha, executive director of Yellow Running Shoes, a researcher, engineer, elite runner, and your BFF who's breaking down the science of smashing barriers in women's sports.
Think of us as the intersection of science and culture for women and girls in sport. Each week, we'll dissect the latest headlines and cutting-edge research on female athletes.
Debunk myths about girls in sport. Talk about how hormones affect performance at every age, to the latest research in sports science around mental performance, nutrition, equipment, and so much more.
And we'll spotlight badass girls and women who are rewriting the rules of the game, sometimes literally.
Expect it to be nerdy.
And occasionally TMI.
But it will always be honest.
Whether you're a strong girl yourself or you're raising one, this show is for you. Welcome to Strong Girl Talk,
where sports science meets sisterhood.
Okay, dancing it out on opposite sides of the world. Hello and welcome to Strong Girl Talk. I'm Molly Herford, joined by my favorite co-host, Dr. Sasha Galish. Sasha, how's it going over in Tokyo?
Okay, it's fabulous. When we did this in Australia, when I was in Australia, we forgot, we're actually recording on two different days. So, I'm Thursday, right, in the morning, and you're Wednesday night. This is amazing.
It is really kind of weird. So yeah, how is the view from Thursday? What can I expect?
She's humid here. So pretty awesome being at the World Championships here in Tokyo. It's been hosted here 3 times, but oh my gosh, does my heart go out to anybody competing in anything longer than 5,000. So 5,002. It is just, I think Kara Goucher said it in the stadium last night, you can see the air. It's so, yeah. And so fine, it's humid and it's supposed to get cooler on Friday. It's 37 degrees. So to my American friends, we're well in the hundreds with and the 75% humidity, so a friend of mine is here from Austin and I was like, oh my gosh, Chris, this is like an Austin summer. And he's like, no, this is worse.
Yeah, at least in Austin, it's a dry heat, as they say.
No, Austin's super swampy in the summer.
Oh, really? Yeah, see, I've only ever been to Austin in the winter, so there you have it.
Austin when it snowed, so I can make it snow anywhere too in the winter. But yes, Austin in the summer is 90% humidity where people get up and run at 4 a.m. And for him to say, no, this is worse, I'm like, oh my gosh, my heart goes out to these athletes.
Seriously. Now, I know you were obviously there to watch everything, but marathon's a little near and dear to your heart. How was it?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so they were amazing races. So if people didn't watch them, one of the challenging things with the marathon is one, it's a long event to watch, but it's usually not exciting. And both the women's and the men's marathons were so exciting. There was drama from the start. Okay, so there was a false start in the marathon, or in the men's marathon. There was a false start in the men's marathon. Who called back a marathon? Actually, Lisa Ferdinand is the starter. She was not starting them. She did start the marathon. Sorry. We had a little bit of a chuckle about that. Can you imagine a false start in a marathon with 50,000 people? So that was the drama. So I think the one thing I'll say is since 2019 when the marathon was in Doha, which was the first really kind of hot, humid marathon, the attrition rates have really dropped. And I think that's made the racing more exciting, right? People are learning to train in the heat. And so, in the women's marathon, seeing Susanna Sullivan lead. So where I was standing, I got to see her leading 4 times. And it was just really awesome to see her run her race and finish 4th. I think it's the best result the Americans have had in a while. I think this might be Natasha Wodak's last World Championships team. So Tasha and I are 10 days apart. She's also turning 44 this year. She finished 31st. And it was so awesome to see my friend race with love and happiness. And, she had a really tough build up to training, through training. And, she knew she wasn't going to have that day where she could be on the podium, but she didn't just she's like, oh, I soaked it in. I'm like, yeah, you soaked it in, but you raced really hard. The next day in the men's marathon, there was a pack of 40 people till 30K.
Wow.
Yeah. And Cam Levins just fought so hard. I've never seen somebody fall off, come back, fall off, come back, fall off, come back. And that was my favorite part.
I love that. And I love what you just said about Tasha racing with both grit and heart, because I think often it's easy to race with one or the other, but that combination I think really is where the magic happens.
Well, and I think we often train them separately, right?
Yeah.
Like, and we think of them as like, bifurcated, polarized. They don't work with each other, but it's like, no, no, you need, to your point, both. And I think so. Okay, my one of my other favorite events is the 400 hurdles, and mostly for Femke Bowl. So Femke really races with joy and grit. Like she's obviously like racing hard out there in the four hurdles. And I'd argue four hurdles is like one of the toughest events just in terms of like what you physically have to do on the track. Every single time she finishes a race, she smiles and she smiles to the crowd. And she's just she might we were talking about like who wins the nicest award in track and field, like Ethan Katzberg, who won the men's hammer, Cameron Rogers, who won the women's hammer, Evan Dunphy, who won the men's race walk, like Femke Boll is up there, and then her teammate Claver, like it's just Duplantis would be up there. Like it's actually just like really awesome to see, like again, like these two things, like kindness, respect, joy for the sport, like coming together in all these nicest humans doing really well.
I like that it's the two hammer people. I'm like, you'd think hammer throw would actually be a very violent, like angry thing. So to have your like two that you're calling for nicest, I love. You're literally throwing hammers and you're
Yeah.
just really nice.
Oh my
Maybe it's
gosh.
because they
Yeah.
get all of their rage out whilst throwing the hammers, so they can actually then like afford to be really nice humans because it's all gone. Just they let it
Yes.
go.
Yeah. Literally let it go as it like
Yeah. Yeah.
flies so far through the air.
You know what? Maybe we should all do that. I bet you know what? I bet you they like write down things that are pissing them off on their practice hammers. Just huck them. We might need to get into the hammer throw, Sasha. That's really what I'm getting out of this conversation.
Uh, Maybe discus. So like I was talking, so Lisa Ferdinand is the lead start, is the sorry, the international starter here. And we were talking about, so this, I don't know if we talked about this, like in the multi events, the combined events, the men and women don't compete in the same. So it's heptathlon, so 7 events, and men's is decathlon. But even within that, it's not the same events, which I think, like, again, if you don't follow track and field, you wouldn't know that, which is fine. But we were talking about like, how do we change that, right? Like, how do we get to this idea of equity? And, Lisa really wants to host a kids, like a girls decathlon camp next summer. So very early plannings, but we can go learn how to throw discus because discus is part of the decathlon. And so we can just like frisbee away, heavy frisbee away our feeling.
I
Cause
love
I don't know.
that. Side note,
Yeah.
if
One,
Decathlon doesn't sponsor that, that would just be a
right?
crime, honestly.
That's a good. Anyways, yes, there's lots of workings in the head. It was what a privilege. So yesterday I went to the gender leadership conference, which was just we should have a whole episode on that. Which maybe we'll do when I get back. Which we will do, not maybe. We'll do that when I
Yes,
get back. Let's
done.
talk about gender leadership. But I got to spend the afternoon with Lisa Ferdinand, and just like what a gift, right? Like someone like maybe nicest human again. What does this world championship come back to? Like nicest human, but she's seen so much of track and field in a very different way, like being quite literally on the field starting all the events, and just amazing to connect with people like that.
I love it. I love it. And I mean, actually, I do want to kind of like tease out the fact that we have a thing that we're working on that we've been working on in top secret here. We have a journal with you coming, or a very
Oh,
guided journal coming. And I just wanted to mention that because as we're talking about all the track and field stuff, I know, while you also loved being a competitor, being a coach in that, like in these sports is like super near and dear to your heart. So I am just so excited for the like thinking towards like, world championships, next year, the year after that, years after that, and girls and boys, men and women having your journal like in their bags at the start and on the field. So just teasing that. Stay tuned for more. Um, and then any last things about track and field before we move on, or your
I
journal?
just wish you were here. Well, just I wish you were here with me. That's all. It's the only
Oh,
last thing I want to say.
I kind of do, but not hearing about this heat and humidity. Like it's
Fair.
beautiful in Ontario right now. I'm good. I'm good. Um, so my like sport news that I got really excited about this morning is like a little nerdy. It's a little on the sustainable development goals side of things, but World Bicycle Relief just released a stat that they found that their bikes actually present a like 14-time return on investment for the people that get these Buffalo bikes. And the Buffalo bikes are this amazing like very inexpensive designed bike where all of the parts are very easy to replace, very easy to fix. So that way, you're not just sending over a bunch of used bike stuff that's kind of in crappy shape to these developing countries. You're sending over these really good bikes that actually can be worked on and dealt with, and not just thrown out after like a week when they inevitably break down. And it's funny because I was just at Durham Shredders here in Ontario hosted a Shred Hers thing that had 50 young girls on bikes, and I got to be a speaker there and talk to the girls, and they wanted me to kind of talk about empowerment and all that kind of stuff. And there was another speaker who was talking more in terms of like girls just being empowered as girls, and I didn't want to have kind of the same message. And it occurred to me that I could actually talk about bikes as a tool of empowerment because these kids are all there just riding bikes, kind of not thinking about anything other than like riding this bike over this jump is fun, which is a number one reason we want kids on bikes. But trying to get their wheels turning, pun intended, about how bikes can be literally life-changing for girls in some places around the world, and even how they can be life-changing even for them, right? They can ride to school, they can ride to class, they can ride to work. They could, there's so many places our bikes can take us, and that's why cycling is so important to me and why, the Shred Girl series is so important to me because bikes are about so much more than just having fun on two wheels, although again, number one reason to do it, but they can be so much more as well. So that was just very, very fun for me. And then to see the research kind of coming out on it, really backing that up, it's like, yes, talked about the right thing.
Well, so in 2017, I went to Uganda for the World Cross Country Championships. And I think this is like pre-World Bicycle Relief. But to your point, there was some, and I think they're now connected to the person I met. Like, it was so, like, having actually seen it on the ground, the power of what a bicycle does in somebody's life, like in a woman's life in Uganda, was just, yeah. I mean, you didn't have your books then, but like if I went, I brought two duffel bags of like brand new clothing for women in cycling, which was like super cool to like hand over. But if I, fast forward, if I ever go back, I'll bring a duffel bag of books, right? I'll get a
Yes.
big donation, right? And bring the books. Cause to your point, like it's the literacy piece too, right? They're not, like we talked about this already with like sport, but like we often silo things, but it's like instead just like put them together. Like I'm going to give you a book for literacy. I'm going to give you a bike to move around so you can like improve your literacy, improve your mental health, improve your physical health, like improve your like outcomes in life, like all the things.
Yep, exactly. Oh, so good. Speaking of bikes, Mountain Bike World Championships are finally wrapped up. I mean, my God, we've been talking about this for like every episode lately here.
Well, it kind of spanned three of them, right? It was like 2 weeks long, started on August 30th. So we like talked about it before and then it was ongoing and so maybe four episodes and then it was ongoing and now it's over.
Now it's finally over, and yay, Jenny Rizveds. Just so happy to see her take the win in cross country. Also, Canadian Bella Holmgren crushing the cross country in the U23 field. She and her sister, I'm just so excited about where they are now and where they're going in cycling.
Well, and then there was a Canadian man who did really well. And then I think so it's held in Switzerland. And so in the men's last event, the XCO, a Swiss man won, which is also just like cool to see like when it happens on home soil. And then I mean I also have to then obviously mention Alessandra Keller, who won the short track again in her home country. And she is an athlete that like I love watching her race. Like if you like saw her on the street riding a bike, be like, you have the weirdest bike style ever. And like she's got long arms, like I think she's kind of got shorter legs for her like really long torso. And like she like that is a woman who never gives up. And
Oh my
watching her win
gosh,
the short
yes.
track, oh, like every lap she was just like attacking. The short track I think for the women was 8 laps, and like every lap they would come around this berm and I would just see her attack. Anyways, massive shout out to Alessandra Keller. I like Jenny Risfids. They're kind of like two unsung heroes in the women's mountain bike, and they both came
Totally.
out on top.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we love to see it. We love to see it.
Yeah.
Okay, is there anything else happening in the wide world of sports? Because you know me, I have been still
Yeah.
just so underwater, so my sports watching, paying attention to has been very limited.
Well, we should so tease up Lenzerheide. So Lenzerheide is the last World Cup mountain bike stop this weekend. Nino Schurter's retiring, which kind of brings a tear to my eye. What a career that man has had. Um, switching gears, rugby is happening. I have not watched any of it, and it's I think going to be impossible to watch it in Tokyo. But the women's 15 is ongoing. Canada beat Australia last weekend. So in the semifinals, it's Canada versus New Zealand. So it seems like Canada is playing the Oceania region right now.
Very
And the expect
commonwealthy, which I guess makes sense for rugby. I feel like rugby is very commonwealthy.
Very common. I so it's interesting. It's actually one of the fastest growing games, kind of globally. What I love about rugby is like there's an ethics of care in it. So it's like this idea of like you take care of yourself and you take care of your teammates and you take care of your opponents and you take care of the area around you. The Philippines has this program literally called the Ethics of Care program, where 15 minutes after games, the athletes come together from both teams and they do a cleanup of the field. And if the field is clean, they then go out into the neighborhoods and like do a garbage pickup. And so it really is this idea of taking care of you. So, I'd love to see it come to Canadian schools and everyone's like, oh, the tackling. Like, no, you don't have to play tackle rugby. Like, there's a lot of skill in throwing. I love the idea of like this ethics of care in terms of like what it is. And, I think it's going to grow from a Commonwealth sport more to a global sport, right? There's a lot of the Asian countries playing in Oceania that will help the sport grow. And I see such a great future for rugby.
And I mean, what a great sport for kind of body diversity in sport and
Yes.
letting girls see just a much wider range of body types, all not just being able to play, but being able to excel. That, for that alone, I love the sport.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. Okay, so Battle of the Sexes is happening again. Do you know Battle of the Sexes OG?
I do not actually.
Oh, you do. Okay, so one, I can't tell you the man's name, and it doesn't matter. But the original Battle of the Sexes was Billie Jean King versus a man.
Right, right, right.
Yeah.
Movies have been
So,
made, books have been written. Yes, okay, I'm caught up.
so Billie Jean King, celebrated woman, really brought tennis, women's equity, into tennis and like fought really hard. Like it was really bad. US Open celebrating them to say like they were the first ones to have equal prize money. I think they've had that for 50 years. Like a lot of great stuff happening. The Women's Tennis Association always advocating, working with the Men's Tennis Association. Battle of the Sexes. What's the point of this? So there's a second one coming. So Arena Sabalenka, who just won the US Open, is set to play Nick Kyrgios. And I'm sure you're looking that in the notes going like, how on earth do you actually know that that's his name? And I'm like, because I follow a lot of tennis. Nick Kyrgios he's a character on the court. Like I think this will be really fun. The challenge is like tennis has changed a lot since Billie Jean King played said man. I think it was in the 70s. Like the rackets are just so much more powerful. The way the men and women are hitting the ball is both more powerful. Um, I think this will be cool and fun to see. Nick Kyrgios is currently ranked like something like 684th. I think he got up to 13th. It was his highest ranking. Arena Sabalenka will finish the season ranked number one. Likely will go into the season and then into this battle of the sexes match ranked number one. Nick Kyrgios is kind of like this like bifurcated player. He either has like really good days or really bad days. If he's having a really good day, I just don't think Arena stands a chance playing against him. I think it'll still be fun. If Nick Kyrgios is having a bad day, not only is it going to be like so much fun to watch him being frustrated on the court because he's like one of those players, but I think Arena Sabalenka has a real chance to actually beat him. We're going to follow the press as this like moves along and like what stories come out. And so that's why I'm not going to pass any judgment really about it right now. I will start passing judgment depending on how the media starts to play this out.
That's always like the most interesting part about this to me anyway, is to see how people are talking about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Um, okay, so
okay.
we're gonna talk about track in like high level, not about the events, but track is gonna die. Track and field. Let me be clear. I'm not dismissing the field. There's no like battle of the sexes media attention, right? There's none of these things. I'm in the stadium most nights. I didn't go last night. I had to like fall asleep before anything started. But it's silent and the crowd is aging. And if we don't figure out how to engage those young fans, track and field is not going to continue to grow. And so, you know, I'd love to see them think a little bit differently about how do we bring the youngsters in. Like I'm thinking about like WNBA games, NBA games, the women's fast pitch league, the MLB, hockey, PWHL. Like those crowds are a mix, right? Like you've got young kids who are excited to go all the way up through like age span. That does not, it isn't happening in track and field. And like, I love my sport, and like, I'll sit there. Although I was like, I want a cowbell, and they're like, you can't have a cowbell in the stadium. I was like, maybe you can't have a cowbell in the stadium. I was like, Jamaicans have a vevazula. That's right. I just said that word. Don't ask me to say it again. Why can't I have a cowbell? And so, in thinking about like rugby, battle of the sexes, mountain bike, and like all of this stuff that is really growing, it's growing because of the young fans.
Hmm. Yeah, and I mean part of that, like especially thinking towards Tokyo, it's and not to say that Tokyo doesn't have enough people to fill a stadium, but I do think putting an event like this in a place like Tokyo does make it fairly impossible for younger fans from like North America, even from Europe
Yeah.
to get there because it is prohibitively expensive, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you would wish that, yeah, everyone in Tokyo would be there, but also I think like I'll give any North American fans a pass because,
Totally.
especially for younger, yeah, younger audience, like they
Yeah.
just don't have the cash. So that kind of tracks.
But I
Hopefully
don't think
we
they're watching on Instagram. I don't think they're
true.
watching on YouTube, right? Like, I don't think it's just about like being in the stadium. I think it's all the things. And so,
That's a good
like,
point. Yeah.
yeah. Anyways,
Anyways, yeah, very. We've now seen a couple of, attempted leagues and stuff happen in track and field. So fingers crossed someone figures it out and cracks the code. But I don't know what the answer is. But
no, we don't. We're too old.
that
Just
might be part of it. Yeah.
clarification.
Hey now. Anyway, let's talk about today's guest. We have Vanessa Coulbeck. She is a Stronger Publishing author. Her book, The Mirror Diaries, and the accompanying Beyond the Mirror workbook are coming out in January. Pre-orders open now. We will include links in the show notes. But Vanessa is also a researcher at the University of Toronto. She's studying in the field of body image and self-compassion. So The Mirror Diaries is really kind of a really interesting way of melding fiction, and we kind of talk about how the book is framed out in this interview, but it's really talking about how we can use fiction to get across some of these really kind of hard to understand, hard to relate to concepts to the people that actually need them, right? So all of this stuff about body image and self-compassion and research done in girls and sport and all of that, all of these research studies are great and important, but if we don't actually take the stuff that we learn from the studies and translate it into a language that is going to both make sense and be interesting and applicable to the young girls that it affects the most, it's just going to sit in research journals and we'll be like, yeah, we know it's a problem, but how do we solve it? But so, Stronger Publishing, part of our mission is to make this information fun, right? So, Mirror Diaries, the first book, Finding Grace, is really just following along with a young girl, Grace, as she figures out who she is. And, we sneak in some exercises and journal stuff and prompts and everything that girls can do on their own. But we also see Grace taking that actual journey. Um, so, in this episode, Vanessa and I are chatting all about kind of her background, what got her interested in self-compassion, in body image as a young athlete herself, and, you know, covering a lot of the topics that we talk about in the book and maybe a bit of the high level. How do we think about this? What is self-compassion? I think it's one of those things that sounds very like, of course, you know what self-compassion is. And then you're like, wait, do I know what self-compassion is? Ooh. Um, Do I actually practice self-compassion? Heck no. I talk about the fact that, yeah, during my recent FKT attempt, I learned that my self-compassion is very much based only in when things are going well around me. Otherwise, I have no self-compassion. And and it has occurred to me that it is holding me back. So we're working on it. Um, And I think what's fun is, all of us have some work to do in this arena. So I think this episode not just teases the book, but really gives some tangible things we can all be doing to be just a little bit kinder to ourselves. And what I like about it is when I say that, I think when I first heard, like when I first kind of started looking at this stuff, I cringed a little because I was like, oh, geez, self-compassion. Like that means I'm not gonna like. I'm of the age where harden up, toughen up, man up. Ugh. Um, those are just the things that you have ingrained in you. This is like what you heard, no matter what sport or activity you did. Hustle harder, etc. And I think to me, self-compassion seems like the exact opposite of it, and to some extent it is. But it actually is kind of that full circle thing where it actually comes back around and gives you that edge, gives you the competitive edge when you have that self-compassion. So, as Vanessa puts it, the compassionate edge, which I love because it translates it into more of like the hustle culture mentality that I can get on board with.
Healthy. Give yourself some self-compassion. There's nothing wrong with being type A and competitive, right? Like, and I think, you know, I've talked to you about like the fact that like I'm the worst in self-compassion with myself, right? We laugh about it with each other, but that in itself is self-compassion.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, yeah, even that awareness piece is such a huge benefit, right? If you can just understand where you're not practicing self-compassion, I think you're already well down the road to practicing it. So, yeah. Perfect. Okay, well, let's get into this conversation with Vanessa. I should mention we talk about we joked about making. She talks about how all of us are limited edition humans, which is probably my favorite thing ever. And she said that, and I was like, oh my gosh, Vanessa, this is a logo or a T-shirt or something. So we now
Yeah.
have limited edition merch over on stronggirlpublishing.com. I will include a link to that in the show notes. It's a very cute sweatshirt. All right.
Sweet.
Without further ado, enjoy this conversation with Vanessa Coulbeck. Vanessa, I am so excited to have you on Strong Girl Talk. I feel like this has been a long time coming as one of our Strong Girl Publishing authors with the upcoming Mirror Diaries series, Book One, Finding Grace, and the workbook that goes along with it. When I tell you, I am beyond excited about the fact that the pre-orders are open and this book is coming out in 3 months. Yeah, it'll be just about 3 months by the time we release this podcast, actually. How are you feeling about it?
No, I feel like it honestly makes me emotional because it feels so surreal, and I'm so grateful that it's you that I get to publish these books with and have along for the ride. You've inspired me so much and inspire so many. So I can't wait for the Mirror Diaries to hopefully at least inspire one girl, whoever, needs to hear the content that's in it the most. And they really are books that I wish that I had when I was younger. So really hoping that I can push these out and have the excitement around them that we also feel towards them.
Absolutely, yeah. It's so funny because I remember reading books that were trying to do what this book is doing when I was younger, and they didn't quite hit the mark. They would always kind of end up being, and we're going to get into the book a lot more in a few minutes, but like I'm just going to put this part out there. It felt like a lot of them, when they are talking about some of the really tricky topics, whether it's body image or the self-talk and how we think about ourselves, they often ended up almost feeling more prescriptive for how to be cruel to yourself. Like they accidentally ended up being workbooks for how to develop an eating disorder or how to have problems with your body image or how to think about the things that were wrong with you. Um, it almost gave you too many examples of that, even when they were trying to do the opposite. And I feel like what I love about the Mirror Diaries and why I was so excited to work with you is because this is what you research. You're coming at this from not just a place of understanding it as a young woman, as an athlete yourself, but also as a researcher who actually knows what the impact of self-compassion, of body image issues, of this on young girls and women, what it actually really is. So I think we were able to put this book together in a way that's still fun to read, but is also really sensitive to how everything can be read and interpreted because these topics are not easy.
No, you're so right. There really is that fine line. And I'm so grateful that through research, through, my sport experiences, through volunteering, I've been able to be on the ground and, I've seen from the academic side what's being published, what works from that evidence-based perspective, and being able to see it in real time, how girls of various identities and various experiences in many places around the world, and whether they're into sports or they're not, I've been able to see firsthand what works. And it has, been one of those things where I felt like I don't want to gatekeep any of the amazing work that's being done in the research space that can really help girls in real time. And that's been the inspiration behind it. Is we're at a time where I think these exercises and these topics are so critical and so timely. And as you said, there has been books, there has been content, there's a ton of social media, but there really is that fine line where it can either, be coming from that prescriptive side of what's gonna help a girl recognize what is, wrong with her, and what she may not have thought of before, versus taking that positive, more body acceptance approach of how we can still bring in these topics that are very real, and these topics that are being thought of and discussed as we have in diary form of Grace going through these different experiences. But I think the way that we have embedded these evidence-informed exercises within it is going to be super helpful in getting these core messages across to the girls and um, helping them apply into their everyday, whether it's, navigating their friendship struggles, their body changing, school, tryouts, all of that sort of stuff that is happening to girls and to even any age, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's so cool about what we've done at this and what your initial idea was with it is we're taking this research, we're taking this information, and instead of writing a self-help book or a nonfiction book about body image or body acceptance or self-compassion for girls, we actually crafted this fictional story that brings you through all of the information, but still is like actually fun to read. And I think kind of a sneaky way of bringing the information to girls who may not want to pick up a nonfiction book, because I think to pick up a nonfiction book, you have to be aware that you're having an issue or that the issue you're having is something that you want to change. But I will tell you, when I was out on that trail, and I talked about this in 2 weeks ago on an episode of Strong Girl Talk, when I was out on the trail going for that fastest known time, when I tell you my self-talk was atrocious. I've never been in 12 hours of complete quiet in the wilderness with no headphones, no nothing, no people around me, only my thoughts. And I kept like having to think to some of the exercises that Grace goes through, the exercises we have in the workbook, because I was catching myself and I was like, I wasn't aware that I had such negative self-talk in me until I got quiet enough to listen to it and then was like, oh, this is a problem. But when you're in the middle of the woods, you can't order a book on Amazon. So it was great that I had that in my back pocket, but I'm, yeah, really hopeful that girls that don't even realize that they have that negative self-talk or have, maybe an issue with their body image can read this book and kind of sneakily learn how to deal with it.
Yeah, well, first, incredible. You always amaze me with all of your adventures. And I think what you're saying, self-compassion is composed of these three different faucets: mindfulness, self-kindness, and common humanity. And throughout the book and Beyond the Mirror workbook, girls, not that they're going to go run the 50 kilometers
No,
with,
do not do it. Bad idea. Bad idea.
nothing, nothing but only their thoughts, but self-compassion and the exercises that we've embedded throughout the book and the companion workbook is to, get them into this frame of mind and the self-awareness to carry them through those emotions that, are going to be new to them as their body is changing and they may not have, noticed before, and to get them in the present moment and learning to become more mindful of what's happening so that they can reframe those thoughts and they can use those self-compassion mantras and those affirmations to help them through those critical moments that, like you said, they may not know that they have needed, but recognizing and learning throughout as they see grace actually apply the practice of self-compassion towards many different things.
Absolutely. And okay, we need to hit rewind and actually introduce who you are, your athletic and academic bio. I know obviously academia is sort of your current primary pursuit, but you also, grew up playing sports. I know you're still active. So introduce yourself to the Strong Girl Talk audience before we get way more in the weeds, which we're gonna.
I always struggle introducing
Oh, I know.
myself.
It's the world's worst question. I'm so sorry.
It's so hard because I feel like I have so many passions, so many things that, carry me through the day. But yeah, I would say, my main focus right now is academia. Moving forward, my PhD research, which is focused on integrating body image education within the Canadian school curriculum, partnered with a Australian organization called the Embrace Collective, and they are leading the way with body image education in schools. So super excited to bring that partnership to Canada and continue to learn from all youth. It's not just for girls, it's all youth in the classroom, which will be awesome. And then also directing the research project management on a nationwide youth sport grant that is working to reimagine youth sport from an equitable, diverse, and inclusive lens. There's so many different partnerships, faucets, aspects. Molly can kind of, start to speak to that too.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Like between you and Sasha, I always end up feeling lazy and like I'm not doing enough because the two of you both are just on so many different boards, committees, subcommittees, groups. It's just wild. I mean, I think that is the nature of academia and like the worlds that you are both in this research, but and I mean, we should also note you do a lot of work with really cool nonprofits and charities. I know we're both heavily involved with Girls Forward. I know you've done stuff with the Boys and Girls Club, Girls and Boys Club, whichever it's called.
Big brothers, big
There we
sisters.
go. That's what we're calling it. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. I think Boys and Girls Club at some point too. And that's, yeah, my passion just extends to those and I can't get enough of it. I love so much just being on the ground, helping, just provide any insight, anything that I can to the table. And I think the reason honestly why I'm so passionate about doing it all, or I'm trying to to do all of these things. I also wouldn't be able to do it if I didn't start to practice all of the exercises honestly through the Mirror Diaries. I feel like it's in a way also been a compilation of my journey from, being a girl heavily involved in elite sport to having to transition out of it due to, injury, kind of focusing on a new identity through that. So all of these themes in a way have kind of merged synergistically and then obviously learned so much from more of the academic and education side of how all of these exercises and what I've also learned through the years to better myself professionally and personally and really see firsthand, what has helped my journey through those changes and honoring, I guess, myself through that and practicing self-compassion on the daily so that, when I fill my cup up with all of the things that I need to, I can, hopefully extend that outwards into the world and hope to have that impact.
Yeah. And actually, so that's a really interesting point that you're making there. And it's something I think about a lot less with like, the Shred Girls books, although those make me feel bad that I don't ride my bike enough. But definitely as I write about, sports nutrition, or as I work with Stevie on the upcoming book Power Up,
Yeah.
which I'm so excited about, but like
Me too.
I feel such an intense like nervous urge to like make sure that I'm hitting all of this stuff perfectly. And then I think for you it's even funnier because you'd feel as though you need to like embody all of these like self-compassion and body acceptance and stuff. But we also know that self-compassion and body acceptance also like means accepting that you are not always embodying self-compassion and body acceptance.
Yes. Ex- Yeah, 100%. And honestly, this is a question that I get asked a lot in, the research space, especially when I'm presenting this work in the sports space. I just came back from the European Congress of Sports Science, and it was a very heavily, elite sport focused, sports science space. And I was lucky to share, some of our Ministry of Education focused work, and body image has been a huge factor of why girls drop out. So, you get on like a little tangent of some other work in that space to help support the people in the audience when, they're talking about this. So bringing up the Mirror Diaries was kind of an easy transition. And then talking about that, but I think it's an ongoing practice, and no day is the same.
Completely get what you're trying to say. Like every day you're a different version of yourself, which means that every day you're not going to wake up and magically have mastered self-compassion and body acceptance. Like it's a moving target.
Exactly, exactly. And I think it's, especially the mindful component through it, that mindfulness of being in the present, and allowing your thoughts to pass by, and not judge them. And that's something that I work on every day. But I think that's what has made me so passionate about my work, is because I'm continuously evolving and trying to practice that. And it teaches me so much every day. And it's something that I've seen so much change through. So again, it was something that I just felt like I really wanted to share and put out into the world, because I think there's just so much benefit to coming back to yourself, and listening to yourself, and accepting where things are at, and giving yourself compassion and grace, and finding grace. I found a new meaning to the main character's name, but it really is, finding grace within, all of those moments, and letting that carry you through.
I love that title. I love that title. It's so sneaky.
Yeah.
Okay, so we need to also back up, and you mentioned the three components of self-compassion. Let's maybe introduce self-compassion as a whole. What is it? Let's dig into, Kristen Neff is the person who sort of started the calling it self-compassion, and let's talk through those three chunks that make it up.
Yeah, so self-compassion is basically the practice of treating yourself as you would a best friend. And it's, the science behind being kind to yourself. There's so much support, and so much, empirical evidence that supports that self-compassion impacts your well-being, your mental health, your body image, your performance, your relationships, the way you come back from setbacks, all the amazing things, that we all want to better for ourselves. Self-compassion really does contribute to. And those three components. So self-kindness is the act of showing yourself that kindness. So treating yourself as you would someone really close to you, and speaking to them kindly, and learning to internalize that kindness, and practice that. And then mindfulness is the other aspect. And so that's learning to, be present in the moment, have that self-awareness, and practice, that amongst all of the craziness. So, just really becoming in tune with what's happening, and as I said, letting those thoughts kind of come through without that negative judgment that a lot of the time us as humans do have, which kind of goes next to common humanity, which is that third sort of pillar of recognizing that we're all human, we're all flawed, we all make mistakes, no one is perfect, and we're all, working towards the common goal, I hope, of, enjoying life and fulfilling our purpose and our passion. And I think those three pillars and faucets together bring self-compassion, and there's many different practices and exercises to go along with each of those faucets. And then in combination is, what we've kind of compiled with the Mirror Diaries, and finding grace and beyond the mirror, of encompassing all of these little good bits of self-compassion.
Yeah, and what I really love about it, as you're talking about it, and you mentioned common humanity, I'm glad we're talking about this because I think right now there's been a tremendous amount of pushback in, I'd say maybe the past year, over this idea that currently mental health looks like, buzzwords on social media that are like, set your boundaries, be, do your thing. It's all very like me focused. And at first glance, you might hear self-compassion and actually think, oh, yet another like me focused thing. But as you describe it, the cool thing is that when you develop this self-compassion, you actually do become a more generally compassionate, like good human who's part of a much bigger thing. So it's not really just this insular, all about you thing. It's actually like a lens that you then see the whole world, which is
Yeah.
pretty cool.
No, exactly. And I think, also some people think to self-compassion as, kind of being soft and all fluffy and whatever, but I love to turn it back to people and say self-compassion, and the research shows it gives you this compassionate edge, and that compassionate edge in performance, and that compassionate edge towards others. And there's so much research to show that the more and the better that you internally feel and you treat yourself, the better you will treat others, the better you'll be able to show up, and be there. And I've truly witnessed that firsthand as well. And I think COVID, as much as it was a setback, and there were a lot of hard times, I think I guess lesson that I took from COVID was slowing down and coming back and working to fill my cup up so that I can continue to push that out towards other people. And I've recognized, this is going on a tangent now,
No, I
but
love a tangent. We love a tangent here.
one of the I won't give too many sneak peeks into the Mirror Diaries, but you know, a power sort of morning routine and what sets you up for a good day. I really found that, taking a good hour in the morning for me to reset, bring myself to a space where I can take on the day, get my morning movement in, my morning affirmations. That is something that has really transformed how I show up professionally and personally with everything. And there's so much more that goes into that, that I could talk on forever, and also throughout the Mirror Diaries that, we kind of pull some of those themes into.
Hmm. Absolutely, yeah. And again, pre-orders are open everywhere, so definitely make sure you get on the list to get your copy of the book and the workbook because the two go hand in hand. And I think what's very fun about the workbook is it does kind of like the book, you get to see Grace kind of go through these exercises and you can do them alongside of her, but the workbook really lets you then kind of take the reins and go through them, which we really wanted to make sure that people had the opportunity to do. How did you get into self-compassion and all of that to start with? Like, where did that interest stem?
Such a long story. I'll make it shorter. For the purpose of this not being like a 10-hour podcast. But basically, like, I think it was a lot of my life experiences, and I think it was really that transition out of sport. I dealt with a lot of hardships through sport, and then coming out of it, I was super passionate about the sport for development side of things, and sport for development can is so overarching, and it can mean sport for development on the side of health and well-being, the side of like career education, all of these things. And I became so just so passionate about it and got an internship with the International Center for Olympic Studies and was so hyped about that, just being an athlete that could no longer be sort of quote unquote an athlete. But that, I was in charge of interviewing various National Olympic Academies and learning what works in various countries and developing countries and saw that a gap was disengagement for girls in sport and body image ultimately was coming up, and then I was lucky enough to take a body image course, and self-compassion is one of those key emotion regulation strategies that helps with the body acceptance. It helps with the body dissatisfaction to cultivate a more positive body image, and that was it just inspired me so much, and once I saw that, I couldn't go back and realized in the field there was a lot of gaps in with young girls. There wasn't a ton of interventions that worked with young girls, so I decided to focus in that area for my master's and got to do that, and that ultimately took me on this journey of wanting to write a book series, to move forward in the research space, to just continue to work with organizations and help girls learn the tools that will help them for the rest of their lives. And there's still a lot of research to be done, but I'm very excited that we again get to do this together to bring some of this research to life and have it in a digestible way where girls really can, see themselves through grace. And I think that's one thing that I've really liked is that we've kept the identities of the characters, I guess, to um, encompass many different experiences and also identities, I guess, and so that it's not just following along with a very specific version of, one character per se. So you'll see that there's a lot of transformation, um, a lot of moments where I think any girl reading will be able to find some similarities with what's happening.
Absolutely, yeah. And when you say transformation, what I really enjoy about it is and I mean, I may be giving a bit of a spoiler here, but there's no makeover montage, right? Like, we don't have her transform physically in the book because I think that's actually where a lot of those books that I was kind of citing as like, they almost got it, they were close, but almost all of them have this moment of actual physical transformation. And I think what we were really trying to get at is like, you don't need to change on the outside. It's more of an internal work to change how you think about who you are, and that encompasses how you look as well as what you do and all of that. Um, and I'm just really glad that we didn't kind of lean into the cliche of like, and then she got a haircut and it was all good. I mean, clearly I love a haircut and how it changes everything, but um, I'm glad we didn't kind of make that the any kind of like pivotal defining moment, because I think often
Yeah.
we go to the outward transformation even just to show internal transformation, like almost as a
Yeah.
metaphor for it. But I'm like, I like that we're like, no, the transformation was internal.
Yeah. No, and like it honestly is, and like, the research shows that I deeply, deeply believe that. And I think, the one of the main quotes, being myself is my superpower, that's it is like you have everything within you, and you may be able to utilize some additional tools to help you bring that compassion and to accept who you are in this world and what you bring to the table. And I think it's so important that girls at a young age learn that they're one of one, they're limited edition for a reason, and there is no need to change anything about you. There's, only room to grow mentally and to help yourself, transform. And I need to now figure out another word because I don't want it to, to mean anything physical in that way. But I think to really recognize that, the compassion towards themselves, you are with yourself 24/7, and be your own best friend and biggest cheerleader in moving through life.
I love it. And also, I just made a note that we need to make limited edition t-shirts that literally just say limited edition.
I love that.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, we're doing it.
Yes.
That is so good.
I'm
That
obsessed.
just killed me. Okay,
I
we've
love how
talked.
I also saw you writing that down.
Yeah, yeah, I was like, you can see me just like typing away here because I'm like, that was such a good concept and slogan. Yeah, we're doing that. Um, okay, we've talked a lot about body image, and I want to just touch on the definitions of body image a little bit because I know we actually in even in like the last year, the whole concept of body positivity, body neutrality, body negativity. We don't really talk about body negativity. We assume that's bad. That seems bad. But talk to us about body positivity, body neutrality, and body acceptance, sort of how all of these terms differ and where we do and don't want to use them.
Yeah, so I mean, body image is still a relatively new field. So all of, the terminology that is used within the field and then also, publicly and across social media, it seems as though, we new terms are sort of coined in the research space and then there they're starting to be, but there hasn't always been that nice bridge between the knowledge translation. So how that's actually being directly translated to social media and what's being shared. And so, body positivity and self-love, for example, self-love is something and body love that has come up and has been researched and um, you know, that is seems to be the ultimate that, everyone wants to achieve, but that's where self-compassion sort of comes in, where we're human, we're not always, it is sorry to break it to you, but it is impossible to love everything about everything and anything, especially towards your body. And that's where the self-compassionate side comes in and where a lot of the research has been is that, we learn to accept those aspects that we may not necessarily quote unquote love about ourselves, but we're able to bring that compassion inwards and still move forward through life and enjoy and be and live to our most fullest selves with that compassion and that self-love is what's kind of been pushed forward with body positivity and not so much with body neutrality. So body neutrality has I'm also not as familiar with the historical context, honestly, of body positivity and body neutrality. So there are a ton of scholars out there that, you can look into the work that has been done and I need to go back to that. But
But let's say we're talking about this in terms of, how you see them on social media, like the very
yeah.
101.
Yeah, so I think, body positivity has been a huge movement and it's also made so many positive strides with how girls and how anyone feel about themselves, but it's also started to push the narrative of self-love that we have to achieve this ultimate of self-love. We have to be positive about our bodies all of the time and hasn't allowed for that acceptance aspect. So within the body image space and with a lot of our programs, we're moving towards the term body acceptance, which is this idea that we, come back to that self-compassion where we accept, what our body looks like, what our body does in right now and in the past and moving towards tomorrow. And we're able to come to the point of accepting what that entails and what that is and that isn't something that is being pushed on social media right now. So I think it's working to flip that narrative as we can start to bridge and translate more of the research work into the social media space where we can talk about body acceptance and self-compassion that not one body is supposed to look like another body. And that's where even the body positivity movements, start to come together with, certain people, just deciding that, something today looks good and something tomorrow doesn't and whatever. So I think it's coming to recognize that, we're accepting of all bodies, all types, and pushing that forward in all of the messaging and advertising that's out there.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think this also lends itself to talking about, we have a big section in the book, or a section in the book, and then the workbook where we're talking about social media and social media literacy, especially for younger people these days, is, I mean, it's so, so important. Not only are kids now seeing their friends, their classmates, kids their own age from, anywhere else, they're also, it's not even like when we were younger and it was celebrities on Instagram. Now it's AI on Instagram. AI is on magazine covers. You literally can't look like that. It's artificial. I know as I was actually looking for haircuts on Pinterest, I realized that everything I was scrolling was AI generated. It wasn't a real person. I was like, I just want to see a real haircut on a real person because this is unattainable. Um,
Yeah.
like, I'd get
It's
laughed out of the salon if I bring this in.
No, it's yeah, it's insane. And it even extends beyond people. I saw someone, do a whole house renovation with AI and what it looks like. And I think there's some great mentors of mine in the space. Dr. Zali Yeager, she actually just came out with an opinion piece on AI and body image. And I can't talk about it right now, hopefully on the next podcast iteration, but there's definitely been some cool startups that I've been able to provide insight into that are working with the big organizations, like Pinterest, like Meta, on um on how to, I guess, decipher these images and some regulations for how this is going to look like moving forward, which I think is super important. But then I also think on the other side of things, the critical thinking aspect, we can never take away everything that's out there. Things are going to continuously evolve and whatnot. So I think that that critical thinking and I'm hoping to also get that across in the education that I bring into the schools. But I think that's so important, whether it be for body image or anything on social media. I think that's what's missing right now is learning how to just go through the process, I guess, of critically thinking what's on your screen and how you feel about it
Yeah.
and yeah.
And I think one of the proudest moments for me in working on this book together was when you and I made the social media section or worked on the social media section, and then we actually reworked it because we started realizing that a lot of social media literacy and education operates around kind of almost flipping things to a negative, right? Where you're looking at, I'm looking at Jennifer's post and I'm like, oh my God, Jennifer like looks amazing in there. She like looks like she's having the best time with her friends, like all this stuff. Like, I don't have that. I'm really sad now. And a lot of the way that we've talked about that in the past is like, well, remember, you don't know what's going on in that person's life. They could be having the worst day in the world. Their dog could have just died, and they're posting that picture to make themselves feel better. And now, don't you feel bad? And we kind of had an iteration of that, and then we were both like, wait a second, we actually don't like this version because it still goes negative. Like now, instead of you feeling bad that you don't measure up to Jennifer, you've just thought of ways Jennifer's life might suck. And that's not how we want to live either. Okay, so for me, here we go. I was having, an argument with my husband. My dog peed on the carpet, just having a really bad day in general. And then, I do what everyone else does. I get on social media, and what do I see? I see a group of my friends out on, a really fun group run together. They're having the best time. Pretty much instantly, my mood tanks even more than it would have if I had just stayed off social media. So I know we talk about this in the Mirror Diaries, but let's have you actually talk through a couple of the exercises that you have in there so that I can maybe get through my rough moment.
Yes, of course. So, yes, coming back to self-compassion and recognizing that you probably do feel really hurt and really sad and allowing yourself to feel all of those emotions and for however long, honestly, that does take you. And then we could work through a reframe and I won't say exactly how we go through it for the Mirror Diaries because you'll have to see how Grace navigates that. But as I'm flipping through the pages, we could think of something today that made you feel proud, that made you feel excited or happy, or something that you could look forward to with another group of friends um,
Or
or
frankly, no, or frankly, remembering that I actually prefer to run alone. And honestly, they probably didn't call me because they know I prefer to run alone. So,
yeah,
yeah, like if I'm thinking about that day, it genuinely would have been like I had a great run that day. And it was only seeing the other people's run that suddenly my run solo didn't seem nearly as cool, as fun, as adventurous, even though it actually was exactly what I wanted to do.
exactly. I love that. And I think that reframe is so important and recognizing and in that moment, allowing yourself, again, to feel those emotions, have that reframe of what you're proud of. And that also taps into the body appreciation and the gratitude stuff that we'll talk through the mirror diaries. And then something that you could do to take a step further is, do you think it would be helpful to maybe mute that account for now? Or you could follow more accounts that lift you up, make you happy, and so many more ideas on that. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that because I think, again, in this book, throughout the workbook, all of these exercises are really just tapping into the idea of self-compassion, the idea of body acceptance, all of that sort of through different lenses for real life things that are going to happen, right? This is actually, this case, it's okay, I saw something on social media that sort of set me off. But we have so many other ones, whether it's, looking in the mirror, which obviously at the Mirror Diaries, we have to talk about the mirror. Um, you, Stuff about being in school and feeling left out. It really has so many different examples and then specific activities that speak to them. So no matter where you are, what's going on, there's pretty much an exercise that's going to help you really tune into that self-compassion in that moment for that moment, which is what I really love. And
Yeah.
before we wrap up, I do want to hit maybe like one or two more like little tips or tricks you would give. And I know this is something that you talk a lot about at workshops. You kind of just alluded to it in that social media one we just talked about. But let's be honest, girls, it's very hard to feel comfortable in our bodies 100% of the time. I'd say at best, I feel comfortable in my body like 60% of the time. I include like discomfort where it's like actually my tummy hurts as part of that 40% where I'm not feeling 100%. But, what are some of the ways that we can use self-compassion to feel a little bit more comfortable in our bodies? We can't use it to get rid of a migraine, but maybe we can use it to feel a little better in the outfit that we're trying to put on to go to the movies with our friends.
Totally. Well, there's so many suggestions that I have, and self-compassion does take time to practice. It is a skill that takes time, but in the moment, some things that can help really is, having self-compassion mantras or affirmations on your phone or having them on your mirror. So when you're looking in the mirror, you are thinking of these affirmations and these mantras of what you would say to a best friend. You're putting on an outfit. What would you say to your best friend? And I think also something that is a huge theme throughout the Mirror Diaries and what we see in practice that really works is coming back to that body appreciation and functionality aspect. So looking beyond how we just see our reflection in the mirror, but also, how we're showing up for that day and how we might be excited to go be a good friend in our new outfit to at the movies if a friend has been struggling or not just enjoying the movies. So I think recognizing that you are more than your body. Your body is a vehicle that helps you move through life. And once we can recognize and accept that, our bodies are changing every single day, and nothing, as we said, is the same, but allowing ourselves to accept ourselves and learn to be compassionate towards all of those aspects, starting to talk to yourself as you would a friend. The more you do it, the easier it will become, and that positive self-talk will start to become automatic.
Yeah, and I think the really cool upshot of all of this is the kinder you can be to yourself, the more you can practice self-compassion. Funny enough, like the better your body is going to be able to perform. The honestly, the more confident you are, there's research that shows the more confident you are, the better you actually look. Like the more like literally more attractive you're perceived by other people. Which, is neither here nor there in terms of like what we actually care about, but how cool is it that just how you think about yourself can actually change how other people see you, how you perform? Like, that's incredibly powerful.
It is so, so, so powerful. And that's what keeps me coming back to the research and wanting to share all of these tidbits, because self-compassion really does give that compassionate edge, and the more you practice it, the better you will become, and you'll be able to take on anything that life throws your way, whether it is body related or anything else related.
Absolutely. And the better you can be a friend to yourself, the better friend you can be to others, for sure.
Love
All
it.
right, let's wrap up there. As we said, the Mirror Diaries, Finding Grace, and Beyond the Mirror workbook, both available to pre-order pretty much wherever books are sold. You can get all of the links over on stronggirlpublishing.com. Vanessa, obviously, we're going to have you back on because we can unpack so much more in this realm. But thank you so much for this first podcast with you. This was so much fun.
Thank you so much. And thank you again for being the best publisher I could ever imagine. And I'm so excited to have the official launch in only a few months. Ah!
So excited. Thanks so much for tuning into the Strong Girl Talk podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, definitely head over to wherever you listen to podcasts and rate, review, and of course, subscribe so you never miss another episode. And head over to stronggirlpublishing.com to check out all of the books by Strong Girl Publishing's authors, including Molly Herford, Misha Powell, and so many more. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.